I do not believe it's happening. I'm actually talking to my dear friend Quentin Riggins, and it's been a minute since we have been together for any length of time. But man, it's so good to see you, Quentin. Thank you so much for being on Crossing the Line today. I'm excited about this. I've been excited about it because I know you and I know who you are, and I watched your leadership grow. I've watched you impact a superstar on the football field, superstar on the Auburn Radio Network, superstar with Alabama Power, and here you are doing a podcast with me. I can't believe it, and thank you for being.
Well, you're family, and
Mm,
we've grown together, and you've taught me a lot, and a lot about myself,
mm,
understanding myself, and understanding my teams, the people I lead, the people I spend time with, and no one would know or believe that I am a turtle, and I embrace that, and so one of the fun things about it when I discovered that, and I actually took just a description of the turtle and everything, and I shared it with my wife. Then she understood that, after going out and either giving a speech or being on the radio, having to go be by myself to recharge the batteries,
yep,
uh, she understood. And more importantly, now my daughter understands. So I said, hey, give me a minute. Let me go down to the basement,
I
watch a
love it.
couple, shows alone, and then come back up. I'm good. But the relationship with you taught me a lot, and I continue to use those lessons today.
Quentin, I tell you that is brilliant. I just love the fact that you continue to learn and grow as all great leaders do. And one of the things I've always noticed about you is you don't miss much. It's why you were great on the Auburn Network because you knew exactly what was going on at all times. But even in a relationship and a conversation, that turtle wisdom, that turtle insight that you possess is really gold, and it's a real gift that you have. You're so observant is not a strong enough word. You have that insight, what you don't miss much in terms of what's going on in people's relationships, what's going on around you, what's going on in conversation, and that's such a gift today when we seem to have a hard time listening and hearing other people.
So one of the things that I share with my young leaders, and what I practice today, when I walk into a meeting, and I'm okay listening for the first few minutes of that meeting. I'm okay not talking the first part of that meeting, or watching others, because you listen, of course, with your ears, but you also listen with your eyes,
Mm,
and you see and you read, and
mm.
try to understand what's going on. And so I've been in meetings with political leaders, governor's chief of staff, and some cabinet members, and I've been invited with my leadership with the power company, and I'm sitting there and we're listening. We're just talking about key issues, and I'm listening. And when the meeting's over with, I'm able to go and say, "Hey, here's what they said. Here's what they didn't say." And I think that's
Wow.
important when you're in your daily meetings as you're leading your people. You're going to have some people who are going to be the first to speak, which is fine. But then you're going to have some folks who are not. And just know that it's not that they're not engaged, it's the way that they are communicating, and the
Mm.
way they're receiving the information that you're providing.
Dang, Quentin, we've been in this thing for less than a minute, and you already giving nuggets of gold out. I love it. Thank you. It's so true, though.
Yeah.
They people communicate in different ways, and if we can only hear in the way in which we communicate, we miss so much. Well,
Yeah.
that's brilliant. All right, take me. Let's go back because I really want to hear your story. I want to hear what made you the leader you are today, and then we'll get to what's going on in today's world. But I want to hear from you. Let's go back to a day in the life of Q, a day in the life of Quentin Riggins as a child, as a 6, 8 year old. Tell us a little bit about what that was like.
So probably the best description of me, two great parents. Dad was an educator. My mom worked. Both of them actually worked at Tuskegee in corporate extension service, and so we lived in Montgomery County, and where we lived in the county, we are probably about 30 minutes from downtown Tuskegee main campus. It was Tuskegee Institute at the time. And I had one brother, he's older, 13 months older. And but the best description of kind of what shaped me when I got ready to turn 16, and I started playing sports late, seventh, eighth grade, and really wasn't a big into football and basketball. I just watched my brother play, and I said, "Oh, that looks pretty, that looks pretty fun." But when I was 16 or 17, when I was turned 16, my dad took me to McDonald's to get me a burger for my birthday. And while we're up at the counter, the manager comes out, "Hey, Mr. Riggins, how you doing?" And it's fine, fine. Is this your son's? Yeah. And so we placed the order, we go sit down, so forth. And we're eating. And here the manager comes out. And the manager goes, "Hey, okay, here you go, Mr. Riggins. Here's his application. And all he needs to do is just fill it out and turn it back in. When do you want him to start working?" And he said he could start tomorrow. And so so I started working at McDonald's at 16. And after every practice, whether football, basketball, whatever, I went to work and worked through the weekends and so forth, worked till I went to college. And when I was being recruited at Auburn, the and I understand I've been working for 2.5 years, I guess 2 years, and I'll never forget. It was 1985. Bo Jackson, Auburn is playing Southwest Louisiana. Is the opening game of his Heisman Trophy campaign. I get the first time I ever been on campus, and here it is. Like I'm going to me and my dad going up there as a recruit,
Right.
and so my dad says, to make a long story short, to the recruiters, that we're not going to be able to stay for the full game. And I said, well, they're going through our itinerary. Look, we're going to have breakfast. We're going to do this. At halftime, we're going to take you underneath to eat, and then, at the end of the game, we'll take you to the locker room to meet coach and meet some of the players. And my dad said, appreciate that, but we got to get back to Montgomery. And so they said, well, why? Well, he has to be at McDonald's. He's got a job. He's got to be there at 5 o'clock. And what I didn't understand at the time was, when I was turning 16, he wanted to teach me, the values of work. And, yes, you want to play football. Yes, you want to play basketball, but there's another side of things that, I want to teach you. And then when I got to Auburn, there was another lesson, or at least being recruited by Auburn. As important of opportunity this was, a scholarship offer, meeting a coach, meeting players, and so forth, you have a bigger commitment. You have to be back at your job at 5 o'clock, and we're going to make that appointment. Wow. Little did I know that Coach Dye was the coach at Auburn at the time. And he shares this story that when he met us, matter of fact, the person who was recruiting me was Coach Dye's daughter. She was the host. She took me to meet Coach prior to kick, which nobody got to do. And he went through the itinerary just like the other coaches. And my dad stood firm and said, "Coach, appreciate it, but Quinn's got to get back to Montgomery at halftime, and I got to get him back for his job." And little did I know that was one of the deciding factors, because I was an undersized linebacker and I made plays, but I wasn't the 6'2", 6'3", 230-pound linebacker, 6 feet, 190 pounds soaking wet. But he said, if it was more important for them to leave and get back and go to work, and keep their word and keep their commitment, then I got to have that guy on my team.
Wow. Now that, what a story of legacy that your dad began putting in you, began building that work ethic, the responsibility, do what you say you're going to do, way back when he took you to McDonald's at 16 years old and stood firm the whole time.
The biggest lesson, what no matter what comes before you, if you've given your word, if you've given your commitment, then you got to honor it.
Mm.
Even if something comes along the way that you really want to do and you've made that commitment, you got to honor it. And so that if there's anything that I could tell you that kind of shaped me along the way, that was probably one of the most impressionable moments for me, because I really wanted to stay for that full game. I mean, I really
Oh,
wanted
I
to
bet you
meet,
did.
I really wanted to meet Bo Jackson, and these guys that I watch on TV.
Yeah.
And by the end of that game, I was flipping burgers. and so and so and so but it was a great lesson, and one of the things that coach used to do on Thursdays and Fridays of home games, he would take seniors in that class, and each week he'd tell stories about those seniors so the players would know their teammates and
Wow,
know
I
their
love that.
stories. And
Mm.
he'd pick different things to tell you about this person, and things that you probably didn't know
Mhm.
or you didn't understand.
Mhm.
And he told that story about me. And and so
Wow.
you want people to remember, if you're going to come across their path, as that Dr. Larry Lowe's a good guy, and let me tell you why.
Mhm.
And so you want to have that impression, and you want to leave an impressionable mark. And so coach used to do that, to leave mark, to tell people stories about each other, and that was the one he told about me.
I mean, and it was brilliant. It's a brilliant story. It says so much, not only about your work ethic, giving, doing what you say, but it also says a lot about your lack of arrogance and your willingness to be who you are and to try. I've watched you truly invest in others around you. Were your parents growing up? I mean, you guys were in sports and those kind of things, but you lived you lived kind of out in the county. Is that right? Kind of
Yeah.
out in the
Yep.
county.
Yep.
What did you do for fun? What was it like when you were growing up as a kid out there? Tell me what it was kind of like
So
being in
so we
Montgomery
we
County.
were they referred to us as the Riggin boys, and so not quite the Riggins, but the Riggin boys.
Reagan boys, yeah.
And we would play in the street. We would play, football. We would play basketball. We would go up. Then we had a sort of like a little field, wasn't very big. We played softball. My brother loved to fish. I was not the fisherman, and I'd go and ruin his time fishing. And so and we had great neighbors, and a lot of kids that are in our age group. And so we had a great upbringing of just a family oriented community. So if Quentin and Marlon got around the street and we broke a window by throwing the ball around, before we got home, that my parents knew
That's great.
it. and
Yeah.
so and so it was one of those that the community raised you. And so you knew, Mrs. Grayson down the street, you knew Mrs. Muse up the street, and you knew the people in the community, and they knew us. And so it was a great family environment. A lot of educators, a lot of professors at Alabama State, some at Tuskegee. And so we got an education, growing up, whether it
Mm.
was in our house or if it was not. We got education.
So you can let me ask you this, and you can say pass if you want,
Yeah.
but are you and Marlon, were you close growing up, and are you still
Yeah.
close today?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so so I was not into sports. And so we started sports late. My brother came and started playing C team football, and I was in sixth grade watching.
Oh wow.
And he was making plays, and he was having fun. What I really like is he had a bunch of friends. He had a bunch of teammates, and it's kind of hard to explain if once you've been on a team and you come off that field and you're hugging your teammate or you're laughing, it's just it is hard to duplicate in any other form. And so then transitioning from football, I watched them do it in basketball, in a little bit more intimate setting, and you could just hear the conversations. You get down when they lose, and you see how hard that they played. And then when they win and put it together and watch the progression, all that sucked me in. And so watching him participate, I came out and said, I want to do that. I want to play football. I want to play basketball. I want to have friends like that, and interact and with other kids. And so he kind of opened that door and opened my eyes to that whole sports world.
Wow, that's awesome. Now, where's Marlon today?
Yeah, so today he's in Chattanooga. Well, he went to Tennessee Chattanooga. This is another story. He went to Tennessee Chattanooga, and of course, my very first game at Auburn, I played against him. He so in 1986, Auburn played UTC, Tennessee Chattanooga, and he was a safety, and I was a linebacker. And the very first, and now he's going to deny this, but the very first. I played the tackle on the punt team, and so I went down in coverage, and the very first tackle ever made, he blocked me or clipped me into the play. Now he will say that he blocked me. Yeah, he will say he blocked me. I will say he clipped me. Now the deciding factor was the referee who threw the flag.
Did he throw the flag? He got a flag.
Oh yes. And so I got to play my very first football game, collegiate football game, against my brother. And so so he loves Chattanooga, and that's where awesome. Yeah.
Tell Marlon we'll have him on and he can give his defense of that.
That's right. He'll definitely have a defense.
That's right. Well, tell us about your bride. Where did you meet your bride, and tell us that story?
So Kimmy grew up in Seattle, Washington. She has family in Choctaw County, Alabama, maternal grandmother. And at this time, I was actually in Canada, and I was playing for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. She was a senior at University of Alabama, and my brother and her cousin were going summer school at Alabama State, and they said, "Hey, why don't we try to introduce these two to each other?" And so we met by blind date, and so for 3 months, this before Zoom calls and FaceTiming, we met through I think twice long distance phone call from Canada, and then through correspondence mail. And awesome. And this was 1990. And so I came back to do the Auburn Southern Miss game on TV. And that was homecoming. Brett Favre was the quarterback at Southern Miss, and then it was Alabama's homecoming. And after the game, we met for the first time in 90, face to face. So it was blind date.
Wow.
Now I will tell you, she is about as hardcore Alabama as you can be.
That's right.
And dug in, and we do not talk football. We do not talk softball in this household, because it gets pretty rough.
Gymnastics, nothing. We don't talk anything.
No,
you could talk a little equestrian, but that might
that's
be
it. That's it. And I warn people, do not talk about Alabama football, because you go downhill. Yeah.
So as we're recording this,
the
Iron Bowl is this coming Saturday. What does that look like in the Riggins home?
So I started yesterday because Madison is all Auburn, our daughter. And so she called me to warn me that, hey, Mom wants the TV. And so I said, so what does that mean? She said, I don't know. It's two of us, one of her. I said, still, what does that mean? I said, because you're going to go back to school.
The wisdom of the turtle once again. There it is.
Yeah, you got to listen with your eyes and listen with your ears. I know where my daughter was taking me. I wasn't going to go there. No.
I love it. So Quentin, you got out of, you went to Auburn. You had a great run while you were at Auburn when you went there, and just and in so many different ways. And what, you were a leader. You were a leader on the field. You were a leader off the field. That's so evident to all of us who follow Auburn football. But more than that, you left, and then you took kind of pick it up when you got out of Auburn, and walk us through your career.
Oh gosh. So I played in like most kids, when you go through football and you want to go play in the pros and so forth. Again, back to when Auburn recruitment, I wasn't picking up, and but I went through the all the tryouts and everything. Played in Canadian football. I liked them. They liked me. I did not like their general manager,
Mm.
and I'll never forget. I played Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and a guy by the name of Cal Murphy was the general manager up there, and this was '90, and uh, in he had a method where if he had similar talented players and one player made less money and as similar, he would play the player that made less money, even though he may not have been the best player for the team, or at least start him number two. So typically, as you grow up, if that person is the best player, that player plays.
Right. Right.
And so in his eyes, if I could get away with playing the second best player because he made less money, that's what I was going to do. And that was his business decision. And he made business decisions off of that. The problem with that is the morale problems that you create when okay, this guy over here is playing like, number one, practicing lights out. Number two, when he gets in the game, is performing.
Mm-hmm.
But then the next week or two, because of your thinking, you sit them down and play a lesser player and you lose that game.
Mm.
And so it was one of those really interesting things that I thought about along the way. How do I deal with this? I've never dealt with, here it is that I've always been in the environment. If you work hard and you stay out of trouble, that you get rewarded
Right.
along the way.
Right.
And in this instance, that was not the system. So of course I called my dad and said, "Hey, here's what's going on." And he said, "Well, have you ever thought about talking to him and just go see him and see?" I said, "Well, I said, no, I just go talk to him and just see. You're talking to players, and they may not know, and you're not hearing it from the general manager. Just go talk to the general manager, see what he says. Can't hurt."
Yeah.
And that's what I did. And so I went to see him, and he was an older guy. I bet then he was like in his 70s and had a cigar, and he was like, yeah, he just short and just, will present himself as impatient, didn't really want to have the meeting, didn't want to have a conversation. And what I first did, though, I talked to the coach, and the coach says, "Listen, you're doing great." Because I asked, "What can I do to get on the field to help the team?" He said, "You're doing great. Keep doing what you're doing. Just keep working. It'll happen. It'll happen. Just." And the coach at the time was Mike Riley, and so, and he was great coach, great person, and gave me a lot of great advice. And so I went in to see the general manager, and he just said, "Look, hey, I can play Williams, and he doesn't make as much as you, and I can play Randolph, and he can give me the same. He doesn't make as much as you, and so forth. But we'll get there. We'll get there." And I said, "But if I'm producing when I'm playing, I'm on the active roster, then shouldn't I play?" "Well, we don't do it like that," and never gave me really a substantive answer.
Mm.
So I knew from my one-time meeting with him that this was not a place for me.
Yeah.
And I just said, and what he did, and I'm sure it's probably the same with that. Once you're on the active roster, you still are, attached to the team
Mm-hmm.
and under contract. but when they release you, they cut you, they release you out of the contract. So to move you to practice squad, as long as you don't sign the practice squad contract, you're free to go. And I knew that they were creating a new league in a world league that was starting up. So as soon as the next time, I just made up my mind. And I told my teammates, I said, listen, you know, I can't be a part of an organization that does not value their folks. And the next time that I am released, I'm gone, I'm headed back to the States. And every one of them, my teammates said, "No, you're not going to do that." And the 2 weeks later, he did. And what I did, I went clean out my locker. Auburn had just sent me a bunch of brand new cleats, turf cleats. They were Nike. They were very nice. And I went to the different folks who I had met along the way that I really liked and gave my shoes. They said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm gone." And I wish y'all nothing but the best, but
Wow,
I'm
my
gone. We won the Grey Cup that year. And somebody asked, "Did you go get a ring?" I said, "Oh, no." To me, if you don't value somebody, or if you don't show that you understand their value or reinforce their value, you're going to lose that person.
That's right, Quentin.
You may not lose them that first time,
Mm.
but at the end, you're going to lose that person. And there was nothing that I felt that the general manager could do in my eyes, to restore that breach of trust.
Listen, once you devalue, and that goes back to who you are from a personality standpoint. I mean, you value relationship, but you also value people, and in your mind, that value was based on a dollar amount, and that's irreconcilable almost, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah. And he made everything about business
yeah,
and dollar and cents, and not
yeah,
about the person.
yeah. So you
And
so you came back, Quentin. You came back like you said you were going to do. What happened next?
so I went to the World League, played for the Raleigh-Durham Skyhawks. Y'all may know a guy by the name of Roman Gabriel. He was my
Wow.
coach.
Wow.
And I went from winning 3 SEC championships under Coach Stout. I was on a team in Canada that won the Grey Cup, and we got to the World League and we went 0-10.
Oh my goodness. 0-10.
I love the Research Triangle. I love the Raleigh-Durham area. It was beautiful right before it exploded. Got a chance to go to London, Scotland, travel overseas. It was just a great time. But I was 4 classes from graduating, and I the very first game I gotten hurt, and I had surgery, but I came back, finished up the season, played, loved every bit of it. But then I knew that I had to turn the page in this football life.
It was time.
And get on. It was time. And no one had to tell me when it was time. It was time. So I came back to Auburn, finished, and then I did something I'd never heard about, really fully followed politics, didn't know anything about politics, didn't know anything about, the differences between Republicans and Democrats, the difference between a merit system job or an appointee. And so I learned all of that pretty quick. And my first job, and I went in and worked with Stan McDonald, and he was the revenue commissioner under Republican Governor Guy Hunt. And 3 months after I took the job, he was fired. And so I'm still like working in my office, and he was fired. The whole place was pretty much, all the appointees were basically shown the door, and I did not know. And so one day the new appointee, the revenue commissioner and the finance director, called over, was asking for some materials from the department. And so they offered, "Hey, do you want to talk to the commissioner, Stan McDonald?" And that response was, if there are any appointees left, they need to hit the door. I cleaned it up. I cleaned up the the the, um, the demand, and we cleaned out. And the one thing that happened, because when you're young and you get an office and you bring all your stuff and you pack it up, your pictures and mementos. And I took some of my stuff to the car, and of course I was a young employee, so I parked probably as far away from the building as you could park. And so I came back in with my second box, and the office secretaries were crying and everything. It was like really bad.
Gosh.
And I had to go back and pack up some more of my stuff. And I said to myself then, God willing, if I ever get another job or opportunity, I will put only enough stuff in my office that I can make one trip to the car. And so to this day, if Alabama Power sends me to, I take my pictures off the wall, but and then I take my name. That's it. I mean, you won't see a whole lot of things after that. So
that's a great leadership lesson, right?
Yeah.
One box. Yeah.
One
don't
box.
be too comfortable. And so you started, so you were gone from there. And then did you go from there to Alabama Power? Is that how that worked?
Oh gosh, I've had so many different jobs. So I'll be real quick about it. So I left there. I was out of work for about 3 months. I went to Auburn, worked at Auburn in student affairs.
Oh, that's great.
Loved it. And I worked for about 3 years there. And the next administration, James administration, went in. And so they spent about a year recruit me. And I just like, I'm not interested. I've done that. And it's one of the best lessons I ever learned, Larry, in this. The way we were treated by, the incoming administration was just cruel. But so I was turned off by politics. I was not going back in. I got a call, and they were smart about it. They called Stan McDonald, who was my boss, who was fired along with me. And they said, hey, we've been trying to get this guy to just talk to us. And we want to hire him to come and do governmental affair work for us. And Stan called me up. He said, look, I understand how we were treated. It wasn't right. But you can work at Auburn and be comfortable and live a good life. And I completely understand. He said, but I don't think that's the kind of person you are. I think that you are a cutting edge type of person. And I think that you can make a difference. And I think you should listen. And so that's always stuck into my head that I could play. And he said this, you can play it safe and you'll be fine. He said, but I don't think safe is you. I think that you're a cutting edge. And when he said that, I said, okay, I'll go meet with him. And I did.
That's
and
awesome.
then they would not let me leave without accepting the job. And so from there, James got beat. The Speaker of the House at the time was a Democrat by the name of Seth Hammett. He offered me a job like a week or two after that election. I went to work for him in his pro tem's office. I helped him rebuild the legislature committee structure where everybody, had an opportunity to be a leader. It was really, what he did was revolutionary, I thought at the time. And then I got offered to be go in the Riley administration, be the lead cabinet member for government affairs. I did that for about a year and a half, about a year. And then I got recruited by Business Council of Alabama to come and run their government affairs shop. And so I did that for about 6 years. I ran their PAC and everything. And then I went out on my own and did my own business for a couple of years. And the Alabama Power called me and asked me to come in-house. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man, what, and through that, you have created a career where you could be true to yourself, where you could say, if I feel like I'm truly making a difference, I know and that started back at 16 years old when your dad took you into McDonald's. You're a man of your word. that work ethic that defined your character and really sustained you through your football career, sustained you through and gave you the confidence to make hard decisions about what you're going to do with your life when you could have taken the easy road, but
Yeah.
you chose not to.
Well, I'll say this now. I'll let you finish. I know when I knew that as much as I love football, I knew that being in that environment in Winnipeg was going to teach me the wrong lessons, and I didn't want to be a
Mm,
part of that. So I
wow,
left.
good.
I knew when it was time for me to leave BCA because BCA at one point in time unified the business community, but at this point in time, they got to the point where they were fighting with everybody. I knew that wasn't for me either, and I chose to leave at that point in time. And I was great. I mean, I was great in both decisions.
Mm,
Had no regrets. Have no regrets today.
mm-mm.
And I'm with a great company today, and that speaks to the values that I'm interested in, and that wants to be involved in the community. And if I want to be a part of an organization like, a board member to the Women's Fund, they embrace that, and I love it.
I think that defines who you are. You're so well respected in the business community and in Auburn's community, but way beyond that, in so many different areas. So let's talk about that for a minute. Help us and give us some of your wisdom because you got a lot of it. It's been a tough year. It's been tough because of the pandemic. We're all trying to figure that out, in mask, no mask, whatever. But on top of that, the civil unrest that
Yeah.
has come to light, and it's different, Quentin, in terms of the way I can feel it and see it. I mean, it's something that I think has been bubbling, but that tragedy that occurred with George Floyd back was just that was so significant. But that was just in my world, it's just a tipping point to say something. We've got to do something. Talk to me. Talk to us. Give us your perspective as an African American guy who has a credible leadership, has made it in this life, influenced so many others. What do we need to be doing right now? Give us your take.
I think the biggest thing that I would say is just like I was comfortable as a turtle coming into a meeting, a very important meeting, and listen. Listen to what people are saying, verbally. As it, some of these conversations that we're having on social justice, on race, and so forth, are hard conversations, and because a lot of people don't want to make a mistake, and they want to be thoughtful, they want to understand, and there the other side, there are people who are trying to understand, and they don't want to be viewed negatively. And so the main part of this is to me, is listen to
Mhm.
what people are saying verbally, and then listen to what they're are saying or communicating with their body language.
Mm.
And they're saying it a lot. And so, we've Zeke has done a great job. My boss Zeke Smith has done a great job of leading our team and having those conversations. And one of our leaders, said, "Look, I want to have a conversation, but I'm afraid by having that conversation, I'm going to make a mistake." And another vice president comes back and said, "We have to extend grace, to one another as
Mm.
we're having those conversations." That's what's lacking today. I think that we're quickly run to our political corners, and we don't run to those, Christian corners
Oh wow.
where, we know what is right and what is wrong, and we're quick to put our political hat on first. If we leave that alone, and we trust each other as we're having these conversations, and we listen, I think we can truly make inroads. It's not going to happen overnight, and we have to understand that. We're not going to understand things overnight. We're going to make mistakes along the
Right.
way.
That's right.
But if we're patient and we commit ourselves to understanding and listening, we will come out better. Um, the best experience, or one of the best experiences I've had has been on a football team, been in a locker room, and you meet people from all different walks of life, uh, rich, poor, black, white, the Democrat, Republican, all the across the board, and it's a melting pot, and you come together for a reason. And we were trying to win championships. We were trying to win games, and we were competing, and we were offering up our talent and abilities in different ways. And some of us were offensive linemen, some of us were linebackers, but we looked and we listened to each other, and we found common ground.
Mm.
That's what we have to do today.
Wow, that's good. It seems like today, instead of common ground, we live in this culture of gotcha, and we're waiting for somebody to slip so we can say gotcha and prove our point, or go to our corners, as you say. And yet you're saying, even on your team, you guys are practicing this concept of grace with each other and allowing each other to listen, and then when we do speak, to perhaps make a comment that, if it's hurtful, to be able to reconcile that, to back up and say, hey, I apologize for that.
And right, and you have to be comfortable telling your story. So what we did is we took different leaders throughout our company, and we asked them to tell their story over a 2 or 3 minute story.
Mm.
And some stories lasted longer than that, and others did not. And it's an attempt for you to get to know me, Quentin Riggins, And so I told a story that very few people did not know about me, and in an attempt to hopefully allow people to say, wow, okay, I see why he thinks the way he thinks, or I see why he may react to a George Floyd story a little bit differently than me. And so I told a story about, everybody knows about Rosa Parks and her not giving up her bus seat. Well, a few months prior to her, there was a lady named Claudette Colvin who did not give up her bus seat either, in Montgomery and in a similar area. And on that bus with Miss Colvin was a lady by the name of Dorothy Patrick, and who now today is Dorothy Patrick Riggins, my mom. And so she watched as Miss Colvin did not want to give up her bus seat. The bus driver called the police. Multiple police come on the bus, and they literally drag her off, and they put her in the car, and they're roughing her up all along the way. And so, which was, as my mom would say, was very frightening, the whole experience. But even to go a step further, a couple of days later, civil rights attorney Fred Gray comes and knocks at my mom's door, and says, I have your name as a witness to what happened or what transpired, on the bus. And she was a witness to, she could identify the officers. She had to go to court, and they had prep. And so that this is her experience. So imagine two young, high school kids getting ready to go off to college, one to Chattanooga, one to Auburn. And what she is telling us, hey, here's how I want you to conduct yourself if you ever stop by the police. And so here's what I'm afraid of. I don't want y'all to do this. I don't. And so I share my story with my colleagues and my AP Co family, so they can understand what I may see through my eyes when I see Floyd. And that's what we got to do. And we got to be comfortable sharing a little bit of ourselves, knowing that that could be looked at or judged, but understanding you want somebody else to have an understanding what you're going through. And that's what we have to do, and share a little grace along the way as we're doing it.
Quentin, an amazing story, and you never know who has been touched by this evil of racism that we continue to fight against. And here you shared a very vulnerable and transparent story of your family who was very literally touched. What a great example of you just don't know unless you listen. You just don't know.
You just listen, and then as we're all learning together, we all want the same things, and we have to find a way. We're on the same team. We may be playing different positions,
That's right.
and we want a lot of the same things. We just have to be, I think, um, patient, listen, talk to one another, and understand, and then back off of the judgment or jumping to conclusions, particularly with our teams that we lead. When we have our teams that we lead, we got to be even more so understanding.
Come on.
And we gotta allow the people that we lead, we gotta talk to them, but we have to listen.
Mm.
And I can't tell you how important that is listen to your own team and listen to what they're not saying. And that's the hardest thing to do. Listen to what they're not saying.
What a great leadership moment. Listen to what they're not saying. Incredible. And I think with your perspective and your wisdom and your influence, I know you're making an incredible difference on your team and with all those within your circle of influence. And I want to unfortunately, I want to talk all day to you. Is what I want to do because I love you and I love hearing
Yeah.
from you. And but we gotta wrap this thing up. So what I want you to do is think about those aspiring young leaders who are trying to make it in this world, and they're trying to be, they're trying to become influencers. They're trying to figure out who they are. What would you tell them? What are some things they need to know as they make their way into this world of leadership and their careers? What do these aspiring young leaders need to know?
So um, this I believe this, and it's not necessarily about the different leadership things to do, but I would say this: put family first. If if you have an opportunity to coach your daughter's softball team, do it.
Mm,
If you have to choose between going to this conference opposed to making that basketball game or volleyball game, go to the game.
mm,
Um, what you learn and the peace that you get from your family growth and being involved helps you become the leader that you are. And the lessons that I've learned coaching uh, Darling softball. That's there are the 6 year olds, the 7 year olds, and the 8 year olds, and going in and teaching and listening to them from the pretty cool cheers to hey we can't do that cheer, um, and the excitement when they play and the heartbreak when they lose
mm,
are all things that you can apply to the office. And so when you're going out and you pitching, a company on what you're doing, a product, a service, and so forth, and you win, the excitement that comes with that, and then the disappointment that. So I would tell you, any young leader, I had a job when I went to work for the speaker's office, and a guy that I'm very friends now, he was chief of staff. He was tough, and he would have us in the office, and it's 7 o'clock, 7:30 on a Friday night, and I'm missing that family time.
yeah.
And I had an arm baby. And I said, if I've gotten a leadership position, the one thing I want people to do is take care of the families. So if it's an eye appointment, dentist appointment, um, when you show that you have a commitment that you're going to run and take your kid over
Mm,
here, or you're going to run and pick up your kid from school, tells me more about you than anything possible. And I'm more apt to come and grab you and recruit you if I see that you're having to take your kid over to travel ball and
Mm.
come back,
Mm.
and you're in the office that next day crushing it, killing it, and so forth, than the person who doesn't.
Yeah, you grew up with a great example with your dad around that, didn't you?
Yeah, yeah. Between my brother's football schedule and basketball, mine and track and everything, he probably missed like 3 games in about 4 years, and not counting all my football stuff and everything. But when you have that, when you have home, everything's not perfect, because we have
Right.
illnesses, we have things that happen that we have to deal with
Sure.
along the way.
Absolutely.
But if you're handling that, and because I know you love that, I know you care for that, and that matters to you, then you're definitely gonna handle the office. For a
I
second.
love it. Quentin, you are amazing. I hope you'll do this again with me, will you? Can we do it again?
Absolutely.
We're going to do it soon. Hey, my friend, thank you for taking the time to share your wisdom, your insight. You are amazing. You're a hero in so many ways, and a hero to me, that's for sure, but to so many others for who you are and how you lead and how you love. Thank you, my brother. And I just appreciate all you've said today. And we'll look forward to connecting again soon. Thanks for being with us today, Quentin Riggins.
Thank you, Larry.